Betsy, welcome. I'm so glad to have you here.
Oh, thank you for having me. Excited to be here.
Yes, we were just talking about how hot it is because we are recording this at the end of August and we are both in southern states, but you're in Florida, so it's really hot.
Yes, and humid, yes.
Yeah, so it's a tough combination. But I was just reading through the accomplishments of your life and your work. And, in your work, very notable achievements, top performing real estate company, plus degrees from Duke and Wharton. I wanted to start off with asking, can you give us an insight or a window into your childhood? Where does this drive and energy and determination come from?
Oh, goodness. My mother said I came out of her womb, very entrepreneurial, always interested in businesses, creating businesses, selling things, making money, not so much for the money, but the process of creating a service or a product, and somebody would give up one of their most valuable resources for that. So that's always been fascinating to me. Um, I had several different small entrepreneurial things as I grew in as a child and even in high school and then in college. Um, I was pre-med in college because my family is my dad's a physician and we grew up working in the healthcare system with him before we went to college. And I felt tremendous pressure to be a physician in my family. Both my sisters and we all went to the same college and we were all pre-med and we were all following in my father's footsteps. Um, and that was a real pull for me because I really loved business, but I didn't feel like that was embraced in my family, They didn't understand the business model at all. They'd only known medicine and they wanted what was best for us and they thought that's what's best for us. So I really struggled with that for quite a while, but I did end up switching tracks and going into the business track at Duke and got a degree in economics. And that resulted in another difficult conversation with my parents saying, I'm not going to medical school, but in 2 years after I get some work experience, I'm going to go back to business school. So I did that, and then the journey just continued. But so I don't know where it came from, other than it was just honestly innate. I remember in fourth grade, I brought a fuzzy pencil to school. A fuzzy pencil is this pencil, then you put this fake hair on the top of it, and you roll the pencil between your hands, and the hair sprays out, and she looks like she's, fanatical, and the kids loved it. And somehow I talked my fourth grade teacher into turning our classroom into the fuzzy pencil factory. And we made fuzzy pencils for weeks on end and sold them to the school. And I was the treasurer and I got to open up a bank account when I was 10 years old. And it was just life changing. It was like a high for me. I was just so in my element. Um, and I always wanted to replicate that. And so I think that kind of catapulted my desire. And then in high school, I had a little cake decorating business, and in college, I had the cake decorating business. And then even when I was at Wharton, I would have these little side businesses on the side selling my art at shows. And then my husband at the time and I created this sander business, and it became this huge tri-state business where we went to state fairs. And I mean, it grew crazily. But so I've always dabbled in all these odd things. But then I reined it in after graduate school. And actually, I did go into pharmaceutical marketing for a while. But when I came back to Florida after a divorce, really wanted to reinvent myself. And then that's when I started creating a real estate business and started building ancillary businesses off of that.
Amazing. Wow. So I love the words I was writing down, innate, and kind of it was just, high, so when did you consciously understood that business is something, that these are all expressions of your interest in business, like you said, especially being in a family, right? That's not
Yeah.
necessarily wired like that or modeling
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. I think I knew it in college. Um, but even then, even though I got a degree in economics and went and I worked for a consulting company after that for 2 years before I went back to business school, I still straddled that healthcare profession. And when I got my business degree at Wharton, I got another concentration in healthcare management, really to appease myself and my family for this pressure to be in healthcare. And I went into pharmaceutical marketing in part because of that. I felt this pressure, and I sadly felt that anything less than being in healthcare was not deemed acceptable, and but I was unhappy. I mean, I liked what the lifestyle provided. Like, I didn't have to travel a lot. I didn't bring work home with me, so I liked that elements of the pharmaceutical marketing that I did. But the actual work that I did was not fulfilling. I loved the people. I loved everything but the work.
Mhm.
And I think sadly it took a divorce. I was 32. My girls were 1 and 2, and I moved back home. And I thought, this is a time to reinvent myself. There's no pharmaceutical industry in Florida to speak of. And so I really had to do something different. And I thought, if I don't do it now, when am I going to do it? And it took me 5 years from the time I moved back. I started consulting in pharma and doing things, little odd things like that. And it took me 5 years to really say, you know what, I really want to do this. And to go from something that, my parents, they sacrificed so much to put us through these schools, and then to tell them, I'm going to be a realtor, which you only need a GED and a 1 week class. That was hard, and my parents weren't happy. And I felt a lot of guilt. Um, and I felt that maybe I was being too selfish. Um, but it was the best decision I ever made, because I knew I'd be happy in real estate. I knew that for certain, just because I had dabbled in it. I had already bought 2 homes. I loved the process. I didn't know I'd love it. And I always thought that dream of, if you do what you love, the money will flow. I always thought that was a myth.
Yeah,
And
we hear that, and
yeah, you hear it all the time, but
so
I never really seen that modeled in my life. And I was like, wow, it truly is. I never feel like I work a day in my life. I love it. I've been in it now 18 years. And yes, there's elements of it that I don't enjoy, but overall, it's so rewarding to me. And so I'm so glad for that divorce, because if I hadn't gone through that divorce, I would still be in the healthcare arena for sure.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So there's so many things you're saying. First of all, that struggle inside of you, and so many women are in jobs where, whatever the job is or career is, where they feel a struggle inside of them, right? And especially if it's, whether it's coming from what they've seen and interpreted as success, right?
Mhm.
They've seen it modeled for them, or it's come from parental pressure, right? Or not seeing many other, right, role models of
Mhm.
success, or maybe that fits them and their journey. But what would you say helped you connect the dots? Because like it's very hard for people when they have, especially the money coming in, like you said, you can
Mhm.
have a job, you can
Mhm.
have 1, 2 more, sometimes 10, 15 years, 20 years of experience in a profession, in a function, have climbed the ladder, bring in secure amount of income, right? You have the benefits and everything. And it becomes kind of with every year scarier and scarier to
Mhm.
make the change.
Mhm.
What would you say? What would be your advice of how to
Mhm.
take the steps and unravel it a little bit?
I mean, it was scary because I was going from a steady paycheck to a very variable paycheck, and it was true sales, and I'd never done true sales before. I always had this company behind me paying my
Mhm.
paycheck, paying my benefits, paying my family's benefits. Um,
And you have a 1 and a 2-year-old?
yeah, and we were just about going into the recession. I mean, everybody thought I was insane. Everybody thought I was
It's
insane.
like scary.
Um, I think I don't want, especially women, to feel like they have to go through something as traumatic as a divorce to finally, you know, realize, wait a minute, I've got one life to live. What am I waiting for? But that's what it took for me. Um, I think what I did do was I don't mind taking risks, but I do try to take calculated risks. So for me, I had a plan B. My plan B was to go back into the healthcare arena, but there's a large healthcare system in my town, and I was going to go into their marketing department. So I had a plan B. So I did feel a little bit of security there. I mean, I didn't have a job, but that would be the plan. I gave myself a finite period of time that
How
if
long
it
did
doesn't,
you do yourself?
I gave myself 2 years.
Okay.
So I had saved enough money that I knew that scraping by, I've always lived below my means. I don't need a lot. So I knew that the girls and I could make it. If I didn't sell anything for 2 years, we would be okay financially. So I took that pressure off myself. I don't think I could have stomached the risk if I knew I had to make a sale in the next 6 months. Like a lot of realtors in my profession, they come in and they have to make a sale. That puts so much pressure on them. And so many of them end up going back to the job they used to have or taking a secondary job to make ends meet. So I
Mhm.
didn't have that. I knew that I could live and be okay for 2 years.
Mhm.
And so that helped me reduce those fears. Um, so I would have that in my mind.
Mhm.
For me, the biggest thing, honestly and sadly, was to overcome the fear of rejection from my parents. When I told my parents I was going to go into real estate, my mother, I remember she said, you go ahead and do what you want, Betsy. But just know that you're not going to be our realtor. I was so,
Ow.
I was so hurt. I mean, I can laugh about it now, but I was so hurt. And, and I said, why? And I said, you haven't bought a house in 40 years. Like, why wouldn't you use me? And she's like, well, we're loyal to our realtor. And again, I reminded them how long it had been since they had bought a house. And they said, well, every year this woman sent them or delivered to them a box of Whitman sampler chocolates. And because of that yearly Christmas gift, they felt tied to her as an agent.
Mm.
And I was like, wow, well, one, I'm not going to let a box of chocolate get in the way of what I want to do. And it did give me hope that if I can create a loyal customer by sending them a box of chocolate once a year, I have it made. I can do that. So oddly, it gave me hope, but it was tremendous sadness that I didn't have my parents supporting me at the time. They do now support me. Um, but that was the biggest obstacle for me to mentally wrap my head around. I had been raised in an environment where we were given three choices: physician, attorney, or engineer. Those were the three kind of professions that were kind of our options. And that was the message that we were told. And I get it. They looked at those professions as solid. You're going to have a good lifestyle. We want what's best for our daughter. So they were doing it out of great intentions, but I really felt confined to um, choose one of those paths and not my own.
Wow, I can feel how that would sting
Mhm.
and be hurtful. Do you think that that also was a part of like an added or turned into an added motivation of like just watch me or
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And
yeah.
not like I'll show them, but it was more like I'll show me. It was validation for me that even though it's not the path that they would have chosen for one of their daughters, it's still a successful, fruitful path. And look how happy I am doing what I love doing.
That's so amazing. So tell me how, from fuzzy pencils to, I believe you said that you've had several, businesses, several things that you had already done by that time.
Yeah.
So why real estate? How real estate?
Um, I think because so growing up, my parents did have rental property. And they would, like multifamily properties, and I was not involved at all, but I heard about it. They talked about it. They had a management company managing the properties. They bought vacant land as investment. And one of the messages that we were taught growing up, which I'm so grateful for, is again, for that calculated risk, always have multiple sources of income. Don't ever rely on one source of income. So even though my father was a physician, he had these investments that had nothing to do with being a physician. So, and they had also had purchased a second home. So when I was, when we got married, I got married when I was 20, around 25. And then we quickly paid that house off and bought a second house. And so I had gone through that process at a young age. And then when I was in graduate school, a really life-changing class, we got to go into row homes in West Philadelphia, gut out the row homes, and then with donated supplies and labor, we rebuilt the entire row home and then interviewed cost-burdened families and sold those homes to those cost-burdened families. And it was just to see what a house can do to the trajectory of that family was life-changing, that a house could do that and just change those families and those children's future. So that always stayed with me. And then I always loved walking through homes, looking at floor plans, anything to do with homes I've always been attracted to. And I love decorating, the whole 9 yards. And so that's when I moved back to Florida, we live in a mid-sized town. And I wasn't a physician, I wasn't an attorney, I wasn't an engineer. It didn't leave a lot of options for me. And so I thought this is something that when I built a house, when I moved back home, the builder that I used, the agents in the model center actually tried to recruit me. And that was the first time I'm like, oh, wow, I could actually do this as a career. I didn't want to work for a builder, but I could see myself selling homes. And so that probably planted the seed of it being a true career for me. And then I went on from there.
So the reason I ask, I wanted to kind of reverse engineer it and ask you what would be your recommendation, of other women, right, who are in a spot place of um not feeling fulfilled, right?
Mhm,
Feeling drained, kind of going through motions, the Groundhog Day, kind of
mhm.
checking the boxes on the outside, but not
Yeah.
feeling that
Mhm,
on the inside. But they have already a certain level of success, but don't know what to branch into, whether
mhm,
it's would be another career working for somebody else or even their own business. They just don't have the direction of what would be the like the craft.
mhm.
So how would you say, or what would be your recommendation of how to figure that out and
I
connect
think
with it?
um, I think a good exercise is to go back to when you were a child and what did you naturally like and gravitate to.
Hmm.
Um, I was always, even when as a little girl, I was walking through, like they were building homes on my street. And I loved walking through those homes and looking at I was trying to figure out where's the kitchen, where's the bath, what would life feel like here? I would go out in my backyard and pretend I had a house and I would lay out the rooms based on the tree lines and invite kids over to play in the house that I had quote unquote built in the woods. Um, so what were you naturally drawn to as a child before we got conditioned? Because I think that will offer clues as to what truly makes your heart sing. But then also, there's a lot of great personality profiling, skill profiling. There's strength finders, there's unique ability. These are different modalities you can go through to figure out where are your natural strengths, where does your curiosity lie, so that you can marry that with the industry
Hmm.
and create something beautiful.
Hmm. No, those are good points. And it sounds like, okay, for you, do you mind sharing? And if you're not comfortable, that's okay too. How old were you when you started in real estate?
Yeah, I was late. I mean, I'm 55. I started when I was 37.
So
And
that's inspiring, right? That gives hope because I've talked to several women who have started like the career of their dreams or like what they really feel, called to even after 40. So I think
Mhm,
that sometimes when you're in your 30s, in your 20s, you feel like it's like a possibility you can do whatever you want. But somehow when we get 5, 10, 15 years down the road, we feel like
mhm,
we're chained,
yeah,
to what we've done yesterday. So I think
yeah,
from that perspective, it's very inspiring. But for you, it also sounds like, besides all tools, because what I do is I meet a lot of people who have done the tools and they still don't know. They've taken the
mhm,
strength finders, they've taken the disc,
mhm,
they've done all the exercises, and they're still like sitting with
mhm,
lack of clarity. And it sounds like from your experience, it's also was kind of also paying attention to life's events and
mhm,
kind of like being attuned to what's happening and what doors, like even that invitation to work for the builder or what you
mhm,
mentioned.
mhm.
And it sounds like when you started it, did you know 100% that this will be a thing, or did you not know? And it's kind of like you had to try it out, right? To see if it,
I had no idea. I mean, 80% of realtors are not in the business 2 years after they start.
wow.
And that scared me. And then the other statistic you often hear is 80% of the real estate is sold by 20% of the agents. So I thought, gosh, I could maybe sell real estate, but the average realtor sells 2 to 3 houses a year. I knew I couldn't live on off of that. Um, so I had no idea.
Mhm.
I did speak with several people when I moved back home. I spoke with several people that I knew growing up and just said, "What do you think?" I bounced the idea off of them because they had been in the town I had left town. I never thought I was coming back to town. And so I just said, "Hey, what do you think about this?" And so they gave me their ideas. They said, "Hey, to start your career, I would join this firm. They have the best training." So I sought out people who I thought could help guide me so that if I was going to take this path, I'm setting myself up for the best chance of success. But no, I had tremendous fear. I had tremendous fear taking the real estate exam. I mean, I hadn't taken an exam for over 10 years. I was scared I was going to fail the exam. I mean, so there's so many fears that went through my head, but I also believe, my goodness, if I don't take those risks, that's that's a bigger fear, that I haven't lived the life I want to live. So I'd
Mhm.
much rather try and fail than never have tried.
Yeah, I mean, you're done now talking to like the biggest regret of the dying is not
Right.
thing and going for things. So I can relate to what you're saying. And so even kind of to comfort people, right? That even the thing that's your thing that you could be what really successful in, and you could really love your days, like you're saying that you really enjoy what you're doing. It in the beginning, there's uncertainty. It can feel scary. It's not
Mhm.
like you have this guarantee 100%. I know it's going to work out.
Right. Right. I do like to always say in any situation that I'm finding myself feeling scared, whether it's business or otherwise,
Mhm.
it's okay. What's the worst that can happen? And can I live with that? And I've never been able to say to myself, no, I can't live with that outcome. I can always live with the worst that can happen. And no, I don't want that to happen, but can I live with it? Yes. And once I accept that internally, it does make it easier to move ahead because I already know I'm going to be fine if the worst happens.
Mm. And what was the worst scenario for you at the time?
So for the real estate, the worst case for me was I failed, you
Mhm.
know,
It
I
didn't.
I, my ego would be hurt, so that's okay. Um, I couldn't financially make it and support my family, and I'd have to go into the healthcare system, which I didn't want to do, but I could do it and work for this hospital system until I regrouped and figured out another plan B.
Mhm.
And I was okay. That was a risk that I was willing to take.
And how was your first year, first 2 years? Like, how did it feel? How did you
First
do?
year I cried. I cried the whole first year. I I didn't cry because of and I'm not a crier. You ask anybody, I am not a crier. I was so uh, taken aback by how people treated other people. The realtors, how realtors treat other realtors and how customers treat realtors. I was shocked. So, but what I've learned is that in my profession, different in everyone's, but in real estate, it's one of the few professions where every dollar that's transacted is coming directly out of someone's literal pocket. It's not coming out of some company's budget, some big corporation that's nebulous. It's coming out of your pocket, the buyer's pocket, the seller's pocket, or the agent's take-home commission.
Mhm.
When that happens, people's behavior changes. And and to me, it seemed like your natural just the way you interact with people changes. People get very accusatory. They like to blame everybody but themselves if something goes wrong. Um, it was very cutthroat in terms of that's my customer. No, that's my customer. I wasn't used to that at all because I was never in a sales environment. So I felt like this ping pong ball just bouncing off of people and just getting in people's way, stepping on people's toes, offending people, not realizing that I was even doing something that would be considered offensive to somebody. Like it was just, that was the hardest thing for me about real estate. Um, that was the first year. Then you have to have a tough shell. You cannot make it in this industry if you don't have a tough shell. So now I'm totally fine with it. I don't take things personally, but that first year was pretty rough for me. Um, the sales, it did take me 6 months to have my first sale. But I knew that was the expectation. And so I wasn't disappointed. Um, and it was the buildup of my sales was slower than I was hoping. I was hoping that if I worked really hard, once I got that first sale, it would just really snowball. And it did take, um, it took me a good year and a half to be like, okay, I see that I can make it work and that this is something that I can stay in and be committed to and make it work financially. I thought I would know that sooner when I went in. I'd given myself 2 years, but I thought success would have come much more quickly. So you do have to stick it out because a lot of things that you put into place, you don't see the fruits of it for 6, 8, 12 months. And I didn't understand that when I went in.
Mm, that is good. Thank you for sharing that because also sometimes, we might not give enough time, to even for the thing that is meant for us, right? There
Mhm.
could be also this like notion of like if it's meant for you then it will come easily, the money will start coming in, kind of you will get the signs kind of reinforcing that
Yeah.
it is the right thing that you've
Yeah.
chosen. How long did it take for you to know that yes, I've done the right thing, like internally? Did
It took about a year and a half.
Yeah.
Yeah. The other thing that you mentioned, the question, and it reminded me, so rejection was huge. I wasn't used to rejection
Mm,
um, in my prior careers. Um, but in real estate, they're hiring you. And so when they don't choose you,
mhm.
that was hard for me. I wasn't used to not being, I'd never put myself in a situation where they're choosing me. I was working for a big corporation. So it was never personal. And so that was really hard for me to adjust to and understand that that's the part of the business. And a lot of people interview 3 realtors and they're going to pick one and 2 are not going to get it. And that's okay. And I'm not for everybody. And I have to be okay with that.
Mhm.
So that was a big hurdle to overcome. And I have seen agents, so, we obviously hire agents at my brokerage, and I have seen agents who sometimes just can't handle the rejection and they exit the industry because they just take it too personally.
Yeah. Yeah, that's hard. And then you said obviously that's a part of sales and many times part of owning your business. Did you how did you develop your own sales skills? Like did you take like sales trainings or did you just go through the practical
So
school?
No, I'm huge on education. I love, and that's what we advocate in my company as well. Growth is one of our core values. I'm always looking to learn and grow from those that are several steps ahead of me. So I reached out and became very networked very quickly with top agents across the country because I
Not
thought,
just Florida, but across the country.
oh yeah, across, it's important for me, I think it's important to go across the country because you get trends, like our trends usually come from California and New York. They usually see things first, and sometimes Miami. And so if you could get a jump start on what's happening, what are they seeing, what are they doing, you're that far ahead. Sometimes when you just stay in your own little bubble in your town, there's not a lot of collaboration because some people don't have a mindset of abundance, they have a mindset of scarcity, and so they don't want to exchange ideas. Once you go outside of your city, your bubble, people are very collaborative. And so you can exchange ideas and grow through that. So I did that very early on. I would get on phone and do role plays with people, with agents in other areas. And we would sit on the phone and role play, pretend like we were the buyer or the seller and do scripts. And some people, I sometimes have agents who are like, I don't want to do scripts. I don't want to feel, I don't want to feel canned. And it's not canned, it's just getting yourself comfortable with the way we speak in real estate and understanding that and understanding how to handle objections. So I would do that very frequently with agents across the country. And then I did get a coach. I got a coach at year 4. I really wish I'd gotten a coach at one. I think that's a tremendous value to anybody in real estate and in any profession is to get a coach. They offer such valuable insights. They're also coaching other people just like you. They can tell you, they can normalize things, they can guide you. I mean, we don't have to be alone. There's so many great resources out there. So I always advocate my agents get mentors, get coaches. People want to help other people that are a little bit ahead of them. And at the same time, I think we have a duty to look behind us and pull people up that we're a couple steps ahead of. Um, so I think that would also be really helpful for somebody that's struggling with that decision, or if they just started their career, is
Mhm.
reach out to other people. They will help you. People are honored when you ask them if they would be your mentor.
Mhm. That's very true. And when you talked about getting a coach, did you get like a specifically a coach in real estate, or are you
Yeah.
talking about more generic?
No, so 4 years into my career, I got a real estate coach. I had him for 10 years. It was phenomenal. He was an individual one-on-one coaching. And then we migrated later as I started building the company into team coaching, where he would coach me as well as my team. And then the last 3 years, I've moved to a coaching program where it's more entrepreneurial coaching, not industry specific.
Okay, okay. How did you identify the coach for you, like in at the 4-year mark?
Through my networking with other agents.
Okay.
We were role playing and talking to them at conferences. I would go to, there's like big real estate conferences all across the country, New York, LA, Vegas, Orlando are the big areas. Oh, I mean, I went to those, met agents in person, and then they would talk about who they were being coached by. And
Mm.
then I interviewed the coaches and then picked the one I wanted.
And was that somebody like, do you want to pick as a coach somebody who's in your line of work just more successful, right? Has already built up kind of to the next step? Or do you want to hire like a professional, somebody who does coaching?
So I chose somebody who it was through a real estate coaching program, and then I interviewed their coaches, and
Mhm,
I picked one who I do think it's important that they've sold for our industry. If you haven't sold, I do think it's hard.
mhm,
I think it's hard to coach somebody if you haven't done what they've done.
mhm,
So he was successful in New York City, which is great because if you're successful in New York City, that's very competitive. So he had been very successful there, but what I loved about him is that he had also owned and operated several other businesses unrelated to real estate. So he really had a grasp on how to run a business. And so he had both those pieces. So that's why I stayed with him for 10 years, is because he had both of those elements.
Love that. So what would you say was what got you through that year and a half, right? Where um you were building your way up, the terrible behavior that you were experiencing, right? Obviously income was below what you ideally would want. Like what kept you going? What got you through? Because it's a long time.
Mhm. Mhm. I do break things down though into baby steps. So I've always been a planner, and so I've always had a vision board. I always, I write a letter to myself every year that's me 10 to 20 years in the future, looking back and explaining like what does my life look like? And then if I'm reaching for X in 10 years, then this is what I need to be at 5 years, this is what I need to be at 3 years, this is what I need to be at 1 year. And then me and my coach, we break it down quarterly, monthly, and weekly. So I'm very motivated by just looking at something that's digestible, and a week is very digestible for me.
Mm.
So I always had weekly goals, and then I had activities that I had to hit for that week. So that I think kept me going, because I did feel like I knew if I continued, I didn't have the coach at the time actually for the first year and a half, um, but I've always done this practice of goal setting, and so that helped keep me focused
Mhm.
and not be worried about I'm not getting the sales fast enough. Because at the end of the day, we can only control our behaviors. We can't control the outcome. So as long as I control the behaviors, and that I am responsible for, I have to trust the outcome. And again, I did give myself the 2 year mark, so I knew I had an endpoint. Um,
Yeah. And I know you said that it took a year and a half, right, to for a certain level of validation. But when did you know that you like doing this, that this is in line
I
with
liked it from day one. I mean, I truly liked it from day one. I didn't like the emotional aspect of it that I wasn't anticipating, but and the only thing I could compare it to is what I was doing previously, but I just loved it. For me, like I never liked one, I didn't like working for somebody else. That's not my personality. I did not like having to go to an office every day. And I didn't like routine. I love every day being different. I like meeting different people. Even to this day, 18 years in, there are agents will come to me and say, "What do you think about this?" And it's a situation we have never encountered at our company before. So it's every day is new. We meet different people, different situations, unique nuances to the deal. So you're constantly learning and growing. Um, I love that. I love the flexibility of of being, my girls were young and I could be in their schools, I could go to their plays, I could be the chaperone on the field trips. I couldn't have done that working in a corporate setting. So there was just so many things I just loved about it. And I knew that, I mean, the first weekend, I'm like, oh yeah, this is great.
So you right away started your own company. You didn't go work for another realtor?
So great question. So in Florida, you have to work under somebody for 2 years.
Okay.
So I worked for, and I think that helped. Instead of just going into an agency and I was a solo agent, I reached out to somebody that I had grown up with. He was already an agent in the community and he took me under his wing under a franchise. And so he helped nurture me those first couple of years. So I wasn't totally alone. And that really helped. Just moral support, guidance. So
Mhm.
that was wonderful too. So yeah, it actually took me, I could have gone out on my own in 2 years, but honestly, I didn't feel competent enough to be able to be my own broker at 2 years. I didn't feel like I had enough knowledge in the legal aspects and keeping everybody on the same page. And there's so many little things you have to know that I just didn't feel that I was not comfortable going out on my own after two. So after 4 years, I went out on my own.
What was what was the motivation, or what was a moment where you're like, I have to do this on my own?
That was almost as scary as going into real estate
Yeah.
because I was working for a big franchise, and to go from a big franchise that has all this branding behind them to going on my own. And my goal at the time was just being a solo broker and not have agents. It was just me. I just wanted, again, like I said, I don't like to work for other people. And even though I wasn't working for that franchise, you are confined to the franchise branding. And if you wanted to do something creatively, you had to get a couple of layers of permission. And if I have an idea, I want to pivot to that and see it implemented tomorrow. I don't want to have to wait. And so it was just feeling like I was a bit confined in that. And so that's when I made a decision to go out on my own. But that was very scary to know, okay, I know the community supported me under the brand, the franchise, but are they going to support me when I have no franchise backing me? But I was very blessed and they did.
Amazing. And what would you say is your purpose?
Oh, my purpose in life and in my companies is to improve and empower the lives of others, but in particular, women and children.
Mm,
That guides everything I do.
I love that.
My goal is with every encounter, I hope that I've 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 made someone's life better. I've piqued an idea. I've inspired them in some way. I've made them think about something maybe a little differently. I've improved their life or their children's life. Somehow I'm a agent of positive change.
Mm, I love that. And do you remind yourself of that? Like, do you set that intention? And how often do you come
Every
back?
day. Every day. I mean, that's my goal every day.
Yeah,
Yeah. And then I have a habit tracker and I track it. So every night it's, did I do that?
I love that.
Mhm.
And is your why the same or is it different?
No, that's my why. And that's my overarching why. I have to say it guides everything I do. It's pretty encompassing.
Mhm.
Um, but no, that is definitely my why.
So I see that you have the book. I
Mhm.
wanted to talk to
Mhm.
you about, it sounds like you're doing other things.
Yes.
Tell us a little bit more. What is next for Betsy and what else are you involved in?
So the book the book came about, so as I said, I'm 55. In my mid to late 40s, I was starting to feel unsettled in my life. Um, and I actually struggled with even feeling that way, feeling like I didn't have the right to feel that way. Um, because I do know that I am more blessed than a lot of people that I see in the news, in my community. You know, I know that. And so I felt that for a long time that I didn't have the right to be unhappy, but I was. And so I remember scrolling through the internet one day and I saw a picture of a girl, and it's a picture of this girl.
Mm.
She's about 4 years old in a one-piece bathing suit, her hands and legs spread out as wide as they could go on lush green grass. You know, she's looking up at the sky, rain pouring down on her face, and she's got this huge smile of just pure unbridled joy. And on the middle of her bathing suit, the picture says, "Remember her, she's still there inside you, waiting. Let's go get her." And about a year after that, I am in Florida, and we were hunkering down for a hurricane. And I always have a project during hurricanes because the electricity goes out. And so sure enough, a couple hours into the hurricane, the electricity goes out. I light candles, and my project for this hurricane was to put photos into these photo albums that I had purchased. And so I was doing that, finished the boxes and took the boxes over to the garbage can. And as I was throwing out the boxes, I noticed on the bottom of the last box, there was still a photo face down in the box. And so I pulled the photo out and I can't see it. So I take it to the candle and I see this picture, and I truly felt like a bolt of lightning went through me. And it was not from the storm outside. I raced to my home office and I see this picture that I have hanging on my wall in my home office. and I'm looking at the picture hanging on the wall, and I look back on the photo that I'm holding. And the photo that I'm holding is a picture of a young girl in her favorite red striped one-piece bathing suit in the ocean, 3 feet in front of her father, who's taking her picture as she's plunging over a wave that she looks like she's trying to hug, and her face has this smile of pure unbridled joy.
My
And on
God.
the bottom of the photo is, in my mother's faded handwriting, it says Betsy, aged 4. And I thought, this is what I'm missing. This is somehow I've become disconnected along the way to, checking off the boxes of what I thought a successful and happy life looked like, but I am not there. And how did I lose my way? And so then I began this journey of journaling, meditation, yoga, therapy, bioenergetics work, channeling work, a variety of different modalities to find my way back to her. And one of the common themes was the disconnection I felt, in large part, was feeling throughout my life confined to these prescribed boxes that our family of origin, our religious institutions, our gender, our industries, we ourselves put us in. And recognizing that we have choices, and I found sometimes I didn't even realize I was in a box and that I had choices, and other times I recognized the box but long overstayed my welcome in it, and it
Mhm.
no longer served me. And so anyway, when I started writing
And
these stories
you
down.
found the picture in a box, as you're the
Yeah,
in a box, right? The
exactly,
picture
that's
is in the
true.
box.
I didn't even think
True.
about that. That's so true.
So
Yeah, and so I wrote a book because I just thought, again, my mission in life is to improve and empower the lives of others, especially women and children. And I thought, if somebody read one of these stories and it sparked something in them to maybe shift out of a box that's no longer serving them, then it will have been worth my while. So that's what the book is about.
oh my God, I'm like the goosebumps. I have like I felt it. Oh, that's
Oh,
beautiful. And what a beautiful story and just magnificent how it all comes together.
yeah, yeah, so true.
Yeah. Um, wow. That is so like so serendipitous too. Um, and this is why I named the podcast Career in Technicolor because like I just feel see the parallels. It's we all want to feel fully alive,
Mhm.
right? So it's so
Yeah.
interesting when you are talking about so you had this feeling of something missing, even though you were you had found your purpose in your work. You were doing something that you love. You can still have that kind of missing something feeling.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah.
I think that's so validating and so good to know because it's not, work is only our mission is only one part of our lives,
Yeah.
right? It's not, it's kind of like just as you don't look for in a partner to fulfill everything,
Right.
you can
Exactly.
look in your work. I think there are a lot of analogies, in relationships and work, like that one, life is multifaceted. And I named the podcast Career in Technicolor because similar to that unbridled joy, like we don't want to live in black and white. We want
Mhm.
to live in Technicolor, like full
Right.
alive from inside out.
Oh, yeah, love it.
Yeah. So when is the book coming out? It's called Breaking Boxes. Is that
Yep.
true?
Yep, it's called Breaking Boxes, Dismantling the Metaphorical Boxes That Bind Us, and it's coming out September 23rd. It's on Amazon, Kindle and Audible with pre-sales right now, and it's on Barnes and Noble pre-sales for hard and soft copy cover.
Love that. So exciting. And what would you say? Obviously, you've shared a lot and you've learned a lot along the way. What would you say have been the biggest ahas or takeaways on your journey of connecting both to fulfilling work, but also fulfillment inside of you?
Um, For me, I think the biggest lesson has been to be more in touch, for me personally, to be more in touch with how I'm feeling and not going through the motions. I joke that I felt like I was Jim Carrey in the Truman Show, living an ordinary life, ignorant of the fact that it was on a set orchestrated by others. And I don't want to be that. I want to I want to be the opposite of that. And for me to get into that space, I have to be very aware of how I'm feeling. And because your body tells you before you even know consciously what you're feeling. And so just being more mindful of that and making that a priority, that wasn't something that I learned in my childhood home. And the importance of your feelings. It was always, what do you think, Betsy? What do the facts tell you? But it was, it was never asked, Betsy, how do you feel? I mean, that's just not something that was taught to me. And if anything, the message was, feelings are fleeting and unreliable and you can't trust them. And that, I think, did not serve me for decades. And so for me, the most valuable thing for me to do moving forward is being constantly aware of how I'm feeling, checking in with myself. I have an app that the app is called How We Feel. It checks in with me several times a day. And it's great. You pick which feeling you're feeling and what situation you're in and who you're with and what you're doing, and you start seeing trends and patterns. And you simply move towards that which feels good and makes you feel lighter and freer and away from things that pull you down, make you feel heavy. And if I can do that, then my life is working on all cylinders.
That. And how did you feel doing the work and jobs, before you started real estate versus when you started real estate? What was the feedback and your feelings and the difference that you felt?
Um, well, the work in my jobs, in my corporate jobs, it was very much, I was working, I mean, I'll be honest, I was working for the money. I was working for the money and the lifestyle. Um, I was not passionate about the work. So when I switched to real estate, I really loved the work and helping people. Like real estate, you don't really sell houses. I always tell people the reason why people buy and sell a house is because of a life event. Something has happened that's precipitated the need to move. It could be the death or birth of a child, a relationship, a job. So you're almost like a therapist helping your customer go through this very stressful time, in addition to making a major life purchase or sale. So that I truly love. That ties into my why. I'm improving and empowering the lives of others. I didn't see that in my other job. So that piece is so much more fulfilling now than I ever had in my prior career.
Mhm. And how would you say, what is the balance, right? Because like also sometimes just going by your feelings, it's like, okay, eating ice cream and sleeping in every day, and
Yeah.
just like going for a walk, like feels
Mhm.
good, right? But it's kind of like if you start doing it every day,
Yeah.
it might be
Yeah.
out of balance.
It has to feel good and do no harm. So like I have a wheel of life exercise I do, and I do that with my agents too. So every year we create this wheel and we have life pillars, and career is just one of them. Health is one of them for many people, myself included. Friends and family may be one of them. Spirituality may be one of them. Growth for me is one of them. And so setting those goals and what I want to accomplish in each of those life pillars and working backwards. Yes, eating ice cream every night may feel good, but it's also not in alignment with my future self. So you do have to balance
Mhm.
feeling good and where you want to see yourself in 10 years.
I love that. And would you say also, what I've talked to people, and what different people have shared is, would you say that like when you're doing something that's more aligned with you and your purpose,
Mhm.
um, how does it feel different when you get up, right? That you don't have this just, okay, I have to make myself do
Oh,
this.
yeah, yeah. Yeah.
And do you feel like also even sometimes working long hours? Because I mean, even with your passion, right? Sometimes you have to, especially when you're building something or
Mhm.
starting something new, learning a new skill, like you said, you had to pass a test, like maybe somebody's switching careers completely into like a different function or line of
Mhm.
work. So it comes with learning, really kind of going back to school, right? And learning a lot of new skills that can be painful. That does not feel good to twist your brain like
Right, I know.
in new ways, and there's discomfort and the resistance to that. Like, but would you say it feels, even when you're dedicated and working long hours, does it feel different than when you're not aligned?
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, for me, I don't mind it at all. I don't even notice the hours. And I naturally feel like I get to do it,
Mhm.
not I have to do it. I have the privilege to
Mhm.
do it. Even when I went and tried real estate, I was very cognizant of the fact that it was a privilege that I could quit my other job and I got to try this for 2 years and see if it worked. Not everybody can do that. So regardless of the situation you're in, if you shift your frame of thinking and you say you get to do it, it does change how you do it.
Mm. And was that something that just came naturally to you, or did you have to talk to yourself, remind yourself that you get to do it?
That that was actually shared to me by one of my mentors early on. And not in anything particular, not even in just real estate, but just in life. I
Yeah.
remember he would tell me it's not an alarm clock, it's an opportunity clock. The
Yeah.
fact that you're setting an alarm means you have something to wake up to. Think about how many people they wake up and there's nothing to look forward to, there's nothing to do, they don't have to wake up. So it's an opportunity, it's not an alarm clock, it's an opportunity clock. So it's that kind of shift. And so that was probably a year or two into my career in real estate, but it's a mindset that I feel like it's just kind of ingrained in me as a way of life in anything I get to do. I mean, I had to go to a trial last week, which was very stressful for me, but I kept saying to myself, I have the privilege. I get to do this. This is an experience. This is happening for me, not to me.
Mm.
What am I learning? What is the universe trying to teach me through this experience?
Mm.
Um, and I think that really helps in those times when you feel frustrated or it's hard or you don't want to
Mhm.
um, learn something new or technology. Sometimes people struggle with learning a new technology or things like that. It's like
Mhm.
I have the opportunity, I get to do this.
And when did you start connecting with that kind of the wider perspective, the higher perspective and spirituality, or whatever you want to call it? Was it when you were feeling kind of that? Um,
No, I think that's always been I mean, I was raised I think that's always been a part of my upbringing.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I was raised in a Catholic home, a very strict Catholic home, but I think there was always an element of a higher power of understanding that everything is happening for a reason, even though it may not be our plan,
Mhm.
it will serve us. We will look back. I mean, all the major, in fact, I joke, I'm most uncomfortable now. I mean, I'm most comfortable now being uncomfortable. And it's those times when I'm uncomfortable is when I feel most alive and when I grow. When I'm in my comfort zone, yeah, it's peaceful, but I'm not growing, I'm not learning. And I start getting uncomfortable when I'm in my comfort zone too long.
Mhm.
And so I think that was just a mindset that was in our family home.
And what is on Betsy's vision board now?
I'm looking into, so for the last 18 years, my focus has been on real estate and real estate related activities directly locally. So I'm looking more to expand into regional and national real estate endeavors, development projects, um, collaborating with other entrepreneurs where perhaps it's like combining tech. Like I have some ideas on some technologies that would really help agents and collaborating with entrepreneurs in that space to develop a product that could be used for all agents in our industry. So those are kind of the things I'm thinking about right now.
Awesome. Is there anything I didn't ask that you wanted to share?
I don't think so.
And how can people find you, connect with you, or follow your journey?
Sure. So I have a website, betsypepine.com. It's just my name. There you can sign up for my newsletter as well as there's links to my book. And then I'm on all the social channels, my name, Betsy Pepine, except for on TikTok, I'm Gainesville Realtor.
Um, Thank you so much for
Oh,
sharing your journey, sharing so openly. I found it really inspiring. You definitely touched my heart, and you will touch the hearts of others as well. So thank you so much. And your book is coming out again on September 23rd. And can people pre-order it?
yes, they can pre-order it. Barnes and Noble has it on pre-order right now for the hard and soft copy. And then Amazon has Kindle and Audible pre-sales.
Okay, so we can just look for breaking boxes.
Yeah, if you do breaking boxes and my name, it comes up.
Okay, awesome. Thank you so much.